The story will be told from the perspective of the main female character.
The instant my older sister leaned over and whispered, "Wasting perfectly good food on you is laughable," the entire reception hall went silent. Her gown caught every single light in the room. Meanwhile, my place setting lacked even water or a name card. It just highlighted my position in the family hierarchy. My parents offered no defense. In fact, my father muttered that maybe I should just leave. So I did exactly that. I walked out past the gawking guests and the sneers, taking something they completely missed. It wasn't fury, and it wasn't embarrassment. Before I explain how their world crumbled, tell me, where are you listening from right now? They had no idea what they had just thrown away in that moment. I grew up in a quiet suburb of Raleigh, North Carolina. It was the kind of place known for neatly kept lawns, polite greetings, and outwardly flawless families. My family looked perfect too, at least in the photo albums. In every picture hanging in our hallway, my sister stood center stage. She was radiant, confident, dressed like the sunlight was aimed just for her. I was always near the frame's edge, a little too quiet, perhaps too watchful, always a bit out of place. My mother never explicitly stated she favored my sister. She didn't need to. It was clear in the way her voice would lighten and soften the second my sister entered the room. It was in the way she would sigh at me, like I was static disrupting her favorite song. And my father, he judged human value based on credentials and income. My consulting business, which I ran from home, failed to meet the image he wished to boast about. "You need a proper job," he would tell me, never lifting his eyes from the newspaper. The truth was, I did have a job, but it wasn't one he could grasp. My gut feeling has always been acute, too keen, according to my parents. When I was 11 years old, I warned my mother about my father's new business partner. I told her he gave me a bad feeling. There was something off about his forced grin, his nervous energy, and his jumpy hands. I couldn't shake it. My mother dismissed my concerns, saying I was being dramatic again. 2 months later, that same man emptied one of my father's accounts, almost causing us to lose our home. There was no apology, just silence. It was the kind of silence that confirmed the truth was irrelevant if it came from the wrong daughter. Middle school was the first time someone actually listened to me. I informed a teacher that something felt wrong about a substitute coach. I mentioned the way he stared too long and how the atmosphere felt unsettling when he was near. She believed me. She was right. He was caught placing a hidden camera in the girls' locker room. That day changed everything. The teacher introduced me to her aunt, Diana, a consultant with a mind sharper than a scalpel. Diana didn't flinch when I talked about my intuition. She never called me troubled or oversensitive. She told me, "Your mind perceives shadows that others choose to ignore. That's not a weakness, Taylor. That's an advantage." Under her mentorship, I learned how to analyze patterns, decode motivations, and view the corporate world like complex math. By my late 20s, I was discreetly assisting corporations in recovering from crises. At home, however, I was just the girl in leggings with a laptop. I paid a portion of the household bills, yet everyone still acted like I contributed nothing. Meanwhile, my sister lived as if the world were cushioned just for her. Promotions, praise, compliments, everything came her way as if pre-ordered. When my sister announced her engagement to Derek, the room lit up as if my parents had been plugged into an electrical socket. A cold feeling ran down my spine the moment I shook his hand. It was a clear warning. When I tried to gently advise my sister to take things slow, she just laughed, treating me like a tiny annoyance in her otherwise perfect life. That was the starting point. The start of everything that would eventually lead to the ballroom, the empty table, and the cutting remark that hurt like a piece of glass. I wish I could say the events that followed surprised me, especially the dramatic shift after my sister announced her engagement. But honestly, the tension had been building long before the ring appeared. It revealed itself in small moments, the kind you only notice if you pay close attention. I always pay attention. It's the one thing I've never been able to switch off. Derek entered our family life as if stepping onto a stage he already believed he owned. He shook hands too vigorously, smiled too broadly, and spoke using rehearsed, polished phrases. Most people saw confidence. I saw something empty, like a drum stretched too tight. When he looked at my sister, The warmth in his expression never quite reached his eyes. And when he looked at me, he quickly glanced away, as if I were a detail he preferred not to acknowledge. At the engagement dinner, I watched him surveying the guests the way a person checks price tags. My sister clung to his arm, laughing excessively at jokes he barely finished. My parents watched the couple as if they were observing royalty. The entire evening had that superficial, too perfect polish that always makes my instincts scream. I tried to ignore it until Derek pulled my sister near the kitchen entrance. They spoke sharply in hushed tones. My sister forced a smile, while Derek gripped her arm a little too tightly. When they came back, my sister's lipstick was slightly smeared, and Derek's jaw was visibly clenched. No one else noticed. They never see the fault lines until the whole thing collapses. 2 days later, the mass email arrived. It pretended to be a wedding logistics update, but anyone could read the actual message. It detailed limited seating, stressed that +1s needed advance approval, and requested attendees to be mindful, adding, "No freeloaders." It wasn't subtle in the slightest. Since I was the only person attending solo, everyone knew exactly who that instruction targeted. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then simply closed my laptop. No response, no reaction. That tactic often confuses people when the quiet person refuses to take the bait. My mother, however, couldn't let it go. "You won't cause any problems at the wedding, will you?" she asked during dinner a few nights later. She avoided looking at me, instead serving potatoes onto my sister's plate. "What sort of problems?" I asked. "You know how you get," she murmured, waving her hand as if batting away an insect. "How I get?" As if having an accurate gut feeling were a personality flaw. As if being proven right too many times simply made others uncomfortable. Then came the dress fitting. My sister wanted family togetherness, which was her term for demanding an audience. She twirled in a mermaid-style gown while my mother got teary-eyed. I stood off to the side, holding a box of discarded pins. Derek arrived midway through. He checked the dress's price tag before giving my sister a kiss on the forehead. My father laughed, thinking it was harmless. I saw the calculated nature of the action in Derek's eyes. When my sister asked for my opinion on the gown, I gave her an honest assessment. "It's beautiful," I replied. She narrowed her eyes. "You said that too fast." There are times you can feel the floor shifting beneath you, warning you that something major is imminent. This was one of those moments. By the week of the wedding, the atmosphere in the house was suffocatingly thick. My mother barked demands. My father obsessively checked seating charts he hadn't made. My sister floated through it all like a glitter-covered whirlwind. Every time Derek spoke, my skin crawled. Every time my sister brushed me off, something inside me wound tighter. The morning we drove to the venue in Wilmington, I felt the same chill I had experienced upon meeting Derek, like an open window in my chest cavity. But I kept quiet. I watched the road signs pass, watched my sister scrolling through her phone, and watched my parents maintain the illusion of perfection. They didn't realize it yet, but the narrative they had constructed, the golden daughter, the invisible sister, the perfect match, was already beginning to fracture. And none of them were ready for what those cracks would soon reveal. The wedding venue was situated on a stretch of hotel property near the coast outside Wilmington. It was the kind of location built mainly for picturesque photo shoots. White stone, glass railings, and rose arrangements that smelled expensive. Everyone kept saying the weather was perfect. To me, the air felt too heavy, like the exact moment before a serious storm breaks. I arrived ahead of the rest of my family. I wanted to avoid the inevitable rush, and I needed a moment of quiet solitude. The lobby was loud with guests dressed in pastel gowns and sharp suits. Everyone was talking about my sister, treating her like the main attraction of their weekend trip. They barely noticed me, which suited me fine. When my parents walked in, they gave me a quick head nod before rushing off to assist my sister with final preparations. I stayed back, leaning against a cool marble column, watching. My sister swept through the lobby with Derek trailing behind her. She looked stunning, not just physically, but in the way someone looks when the whole world has assured them they are invincible. Derek glanced at me once, and our eyes connected for a split second. The look on his face wasn't one of simple irritation. It was an acknowledgement, like he saw me as a potential threat he didn't fully comprehend. He instantly looked away. I should have said something. I should have tried to warn my sister again. But how do you talk to someone who has already decided your opinion is worthless? The first real cracks appeared during the rehearsal walkthrough. My sister snapped at the coordinator because the aisle candles were not perfectly symmetrical. Derek wrongly blamed a groomsman for poor timing when he was the one who entered late. My parents stood beside them, both wearing tight smiles, too invested in maintaining the perfect image to recognize the reality buckling beneath their feet. While the others rehearsed, I walked toward the reception hall. Most of the tables were already set. Gold charger plates, crystal stemware, towering floral centerpieces. It was beautiful enough to almost make me forget the tension vibrating beneath the surface. Then I located my assigned table. It was stuck near the back, pressed against a wall, practically hidden behind a large pillar. No centerpiece, no water glasses, no name card. Just a blank setup that felt less like an error and more like a deliberate insult. I stood there for a long time, just taking it in. I heard the low hum of voices from the main seating area and smelled the faint ocean salt in the air. The realization hit me. This was not an accidental oversight. This was a setup for my humiliation. Later, I asked a server walking past about the lack of place setting. She hesitated before quietly saying, "I was instructed that this one is self-managed." She hurried off before I could reply, leaving her words hanging in the air like dust. Self-managed, in a ballroom filled with catered luxury. Only my table. That evening, sitting in my hotel room, I looked at the navy dress I had chosen for the ceremony. I picked it because it felt steady and quiet like me. But in that moment, I knew it was armor. Not flashy, not meant to impress, just strong enough to remind me that I wasn't as easily broken as my family believed. I could feel the situation unraveling, the subtle errors, the tension getting tighter, like a thread pulled too far. I knew, without knowing the specific details, that the next day wouldn't be the fairy tale my sister envisioned. She was pushing something, or someone, past the breaking point. And if you keep pulling a single thread, eventually the entire garment will come apart. The morning of the wedding tasted like salty air and anxiety. The atmosphere felt unusually heavy, as if the coastline itself sensed what was about to happen. I put on my navy dress, smoothing the fabric over my body. It felt like a second skin, quiet, grounded, completely unlike the glittering demands the day placed on everyone else. When I stepped out of my room, the hallway smelled intensely of expensive perfume and pressure. Guests floated toward the ceremony, their voices light with polite excitement. I walked among them like an unseen presence. The sound of violins drifted through the corridor as I neared the ballroom entrance, elegant and soft, a sharp contrast to the tension in my chest. Inside, the room shimmered. Light bounced off the polished floor, catching the sequins on dresses and the gold accents on the tables. My sister stood near the front, surrounded by the bridesmaids, her veil flowing out like a magazine cover model. She didn't notice me right away. Why would she? I had been a part of the background of her life for years. I walked to my assigned spot, the same table from the rehearsal, still against the wall. It still lacked water, silverware, or a place card. This time, all the other tables were fully prepared. Wine poured, bread baskets ready, servers moving efficiently among the groups. Not mine. When I caught the eye of a passing server, she froze, looking caught off guard. "Excuse me," I asked quietly. "Is there a delay with this table?" She checked her notepad, then looked back at me, guilt visible on her face. I was told this one is self-managed." The words felt like weights dropping. "In a fully catered ballroom," I pressed. She swallowed hard. "I'm genuinely sorry." Then she rushed away. The humiliation wasn't a shock. What surprised me was how expected it felt, as if I had been preparing for this moment my whole life. I sat down anyway. The ceremony itself was a blur of white lace, vows that sounded like carefully edited social media posts, and my sister smiling like she had just won a grand prize. Derek stood next to her in a suit that seemed like a costume, sharp tailoring hiding an inner void. When they kissed and the guests applauded, I clapped too, not out of happiness, but out of acceptance of the situation. This was the superficial world they insisted on building, and I had never been part of it. After the ceremony, guests poured into the reception hall. There was laughter, champagne glasses clinking, and plates piled with food I hadn't been offered. I stayed seated, silent, the cool wall supporting my back. That's when my sister spotted me. She detached herself from a group of bridesmaids and walked over, her dress swishing, her perfume reaching me before her voice did. She leaned close, her smile so sickly sweet it made my teeth hurt. "Wasting perfectly good food on you, that's cute." Her tone wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. Those closest to us heard it. The others further away felt the mood shift, heads turned, whispers started like spreading sparks. I blinked at her, stunned, even though I had braced myself for some kind of slight, just not this precise level of meanness. She tilted her head. "You can just leave the gift and go home." Home. The place where I was necessary when bills were due, but excluded from every celebration. I felt everyone's eyes on me. The deepest hurt wasn't from her comment. It was seeing my parents a few feet away, watching, doing absolutely nothing. My mother looked down at her bouquet. My father took a drink of wine, then muttered, "Well, maybe she really should go." That was the limit. The moment the very last thread broke, I stood up slowly. The room seemed to expand and contract around me. My napkin fell from my lap onto the floor with a quiet sound. "All right," I said, forcing a faint smile. "I'll be leaving." My sister smirked, sensing victory, but I wasn't finished yet. I looked directly at her and added, "But understand this, you will all regret this." The atmosphere immediately changed. Someone at the head table dropped a piece of silverware. A bridesmaid gasped sharply. My sister blinked, confusion replacing her smug look. Before she could respond, a chair scraped loudly near the front. A tall man in a slate gray suit, Ethan, Derek's older brother, stood up. I hadn't seen him all day. "I care," he stated, his voice cutting across the ballroom like calm, strong steel. "And you people should absolutely listen to her." Every head turned toward him. My sister scoffed. "Excuse me, who are you?" "I'm Derek's brother," Ethan replied. Derek stiffened beside her. Ethan continued, "I stayed quiet because I didn't want to ruin this day." He corrected himself. "But Taylor is right. You will regret this, all of it." The room fell into an even deeper silence. Ethan then addressed the entire crowd. "Since all of you value appearances so highly, let's destroy the final one. Derek is not inheriting anything. Our father's corporation filed for bankruptcy 6 months ago. Derek has been unemployed ever since." Gasps shot through the room. My sister spun toward Derek. "What? Tell me he's lying." Derek's jaw flexed. "I never actually said I was unemployed. You implied you were taking over," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I didn't force you to sign anything," he mumbled. Then everything spilled out. The condo lease is in her name. The fake timelines, the rush to marry, the fabricated financial security. My sister's face turned white beneath her makeup. My parents stood frozen. My mother's hand trembled on her necklace. My father cursed under his breath, suddenly realizing the golden image he adored was disintegrating. But the exposure wasn't over. Another, older voice rose from a table near the front. "Enough!" Mr. Sterling stood up, impeccably dressed, his silver hair reflecting the chandelier light. My sister's eyes widened. "Mr. Sterling." He ignored her. He pointed at me. "I came here only out of respect," he announced. "Not for you people, but for her." A ripple tore through the guests. "Taylor," he paused slightly. "Taylor saved my company 6 months ago, quietly, efficiently, brilliantly. You all enjoy the company's stability, thank her." My sister's jaw dropped open. My parents stared at me as if they had never seen me before. Mr. Sterling continued, "She doesn't need a spotlight or your approval. She simply needed to be heard." My sister swayed, nearly tripping in her high heels. Whispers erupted, questions, shock, deep regret. A guest near the gift table asked loudly, "Are refunds permitted?" Someone else whispered, "They really didn't serve her food." Another murmured, "Chelsea is finished." I inhaled slowly and deeply. For the first time all day, the air felt breathable. Ethan moved closer, placing a steady hand on my shoulder. "Let's leave," he said softly. "This place is sinking." I nodded. We walked out together, past the wreckage of my sister's perfect illusion, past my parents' stunned silence, past the chaos unraveling behind us. When the ballroom doors shut, the ocean breeze hit my face. It wasn't chilling, but fresh, like a brand new beginning. Behind us, the wedding was in ruins. In front of me, a different path was opening, one that finally felt like mine. The consequences came faster than we anticipated. By Monday morning, clips of the wedding were circulating online, shaky videos of my sister's breakdown, Ethan's calm exposé, Mr. Sterling calling out my name in front of 200 stunned attendees. People love a well-packaged disaster, and this one wrapped itself up perfectly for the internet. Derek vanished. He blocked my sister, blocked Ethan, and blocked half the wedding party. He slipped out of the city before anyone could demand answers. The condo lease my sister signed was non-refundable. Payments quickly piled up like quicksand. Then the ripple reached my parents. Without the money I had been secretly contributing, covering utilities, repairs, and even some overdue bills, their perfect facade shattered. They began renting out the guest bedroom. My father picked up part-time work. My mother started selling old antiques online, pretending it was just a casual hobby. They never called to apologize. They only called to ask if I would help my sister through her difficult time. I didn't answer those calls. Meanwhile, my world finally grew instead of shrinking. I moved into a small apartment in downtown Raleigh. It wasn't luxurious, but it was bright, with room for my notebooks and late-night strategy meetings. After the wedding disaster went viral in business circles, clients reached out constantly. Mr. Sterling introduced me to 2 other CEOs. Diana almost cried when she saw how full my professional calendar had become. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving my life. I was genuinely living it. The strange thing was, I didn't miss any of them. By early spring, the noise around the wedding had finally faded, leaving only the reality everyone had to face. My sister was one of the first to break the silence. She showed up at my apartment one Friday afternoon. No high heels, no designer handbag, just a tired woman with swollen eyes and a voice barely holding together. "I don't need money," she said. "I just don't know where else I can go." For a brief moment, I saw the sister I had always wished for. Not the one who mocked me in the ballroom. Not the one who chose Derek over common sense. Just someone who had finally fallen low enough to see the ground I had occupied all my life. I let her in, setting clear rules. No lies, no insults, no excuses. She nodded, showing a gratitude I had never witnessed before. Ethan and I kept in touch, too. Soft check-ins, zero pressure. A quiet, dependable connection that felt unfamiliar but safe. Maybe something would develop between us. Maybe not. For once, I didn't feel pressured to define it. Standing by my window one evening, watching the city lights flicker, I understood something simple yet profound. Being the quiet one never made me weak. It only made people severely underestimate the power of the moment I finally chose myself. If you've ever been the overlooked one, the underestimated one, feel free to share your story. And if you want more stories like this one, hit subscribe so you don't miss what I write next.